This video is brought to you by our new show, The Daily Briefing. That's the show where we go through the 5 most important news stories each day, giving you a rundown of everything you need to know around the world in a matter of minutes. Watch on the separate TLDR Daily YouTube channel or listen by searching in your favourite podcast app. Since Russia invaded Ukraine in late February, NATO membership has become a hot topic of conversation. Despite currently boasting 30 members, several EU countries have opted against signing up, including Finland, Sweden, and the Republic of Ireland. We've already done another video on Finland and Sweden possibly joining NATO, and that's linked below. But today we're going to be taking a look at another European exception, Ireland, and do our best to explain why Ireland has never joined before, and the likelihood of them joining NATO in the near future. First things first though, a bit of Irish history. Ireland has officially been neutral in international relations ever since its independence about 100 years ago. However, the nature of this neutrality has been complicated and varied over time. For instance, during World War II, many historians agree that Ireland was neutral in name, but not in action. For example, airspace was granted for Allied flyovers from the US to Royal Air Force bases in Northern Ireland and Great Britain. In addition, US planes flying to North Africa used Shannon Airport as a refueling stop. The Irish Free State military also shared intelligence with their British counterparts, and even formulated a plan for joint military operations if the Nazis were ever to invade Ireland. But the greatest indication of Irish non-neutrality was the number of Irish who stepped up to serve in the British Armed Forces. From 1939 to 1945, 70,000 citizens of the neutral Irish Free State volunteered to wear the British uniform. And these brave people gave a major boost to Britain at a time when it seemed to be the last bastion of resistance against Hitler and the Nazis. Later on during the Cold War, Ireland maintained its official policy of neutrality. It didn't align itself with NATO or the Warsaw Pact, but nevertheless, in 1962 and 63, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, it's now been documented that the Irish Prime Minister authorised searches of aircraft that stopped over at Shannon Airport en route between the Warsaw Pact countries and Cuba, looking for warlike material. Ireland then applied to join the then European Community in 1963 and was finally accepted into what's now known as the European Union in 1973, along with its larger neighbour, the United Kingdom. It was around this time that many Irish politicians accepted and believed that further European integration would eventually reach a point where Ireland would have to take sides and join some sort of Western defence cooperation. In fact, in 1981, the government successfully opposed a motion of neutrality, as they argued that non-alignment is incompatible with our membership of the European Community and with our interests and ideals. However, it's worth pointing out that in practice, Ireland did maintain its position of neutrality for subsequent decades, most notably during the Falklands War, where it opposed any support for EC sanctions against Argentina, on the grounds that as a neutral nation, Ireland has always refrained from military alliances of any kind. Much later, in 1999, Ireland joined NATO's Partnership for Peace programme. This format allows for flexible cooperation between the two parties and is generally seen as a trust-building outfit that may then eventually lead to full membership of the organisation. And in fact, non-NATO countries like Sweden and Finland are also members. Ireland is also involved in the Euro-Atlantic Partnership Council, a multilateral forum created to improve relations between NATO and non-NATO countries in Europe and on the European periphery. More recently, with regard to the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, Ireland remained neutral, but did allow US Air Force planes to refuel and transport US military personnel at Shannon Airport during the conflicts. So, ultimately, Ireland has never applied to join as a full member of NATO due to its long-standing policy of military neutrality, yet it does still cooperate very closely with fellow Western NATO countries. So, that's where Ireland has historically stood. But what's their stance on the war in Ukraine at the moment? Well, as a member of the European Union, Ireland is one of 27 countries where sanctions imposed against Russia are now in force. and airspace within EU members is also closed off to Russian aircraft. However, the Irish government has made clear that they will not be helping to fund the provision of weapons to Ukraine. Instead, it will contribute €9 million to the non-lethal EU fund aiding Ukrainian forces. This will include helmets, medical equipment, blood and fuel. It's also worth noting that Ireland has been very welcoming regarding Ukrainian refugees, taking in roughly 17,000 people, with many estimating this could reach 40,000 by the end of April. This is in stark contrast to its bigger neighbour, the United Kingdom, which has thus far only taken in 12,000 refugees, despite its far larger population. And the vast majority of these refugees are only being allowed in if they have existing family ties in the UK. So, with Ireland refusing to fund the shipment of weapons to Ukraine, what are the chances of them actually joining NATO? Well, from a NATO perspective, in 2013, the former Secretary General said during a visit to Dublin that the door is open for Ireland to join, and that it will be warmly welcomed into the organisation. In fact, NATO publicly says that its membership is open to any European state in a position to further the principles of the treaty and to contribute to the security of the North Atlantic area. However, countries that wish to join NATO must follow a membership action plan, an application process that involves outlining security and political policies. The Membership Action Plan helps aspiring members prepare for membership and meet key requirements by providing practical advice and targeted assistance. But this can be a lengthy undertaking. For example, North Macedonia took 20 years to complete the plan before it joined NATO in 2020. However, there are a few other stumbling blocks to Ireland joining NATO anytime soon. The first being the Constitution. Currently, Article 29.4.9 of the Constitution prohibits Ireland from joining any common defence agreement, and it's widely understood that a referendum would have to be held before any changes could be made to the Constitution. Secondly, public opinion remains divided. A newly published opinion poll found that support for joining NATO had reached a record high in Ireland, but still a minority, 48%, are in favour, with 39% against. Still, that is a major increase. After all, only 34% of Irish citizens supported joining the military alliance in January, prior to the outbreak of conflict in Ukraine. And that's not the only place where opinion is changing. A total of 59% of Irish people say that they would support an increase to military spending, compared to just 28% who are against the proposal, while 39% of those surveyed believe that Ireland should be sending armed forces to Ukraine. However, ultimately things aren't changing across the board. 57% of those surveyed still said that they disagreed with the idea of Ireland dropping its neutrality, preferring the nation to remain neutral. And currently no major Irish political party is even in favour of joining NATO. The former Irish president, Leo Varadkar, recently said on RTE Radio, "I don't see us applying to join NATO, but I do see us getting more involved in European defence." So it does look unlikely that Ireland will join NATO in the immediate future. But with fellow northern EU members, Sweden and Finland looking likely to join soon, there is certainly a renewed interest, with many Irish arguing that now is the time to finally change Ireland's policy on military neutrality. And if you want to be updated on this story, if and when Irish opinion shifts, then be sure to subscribe to the Daily Briefing. That's our new daily show, where we explain 5 news stories every single day. We pick out the big stories, the ones you ought to know about, but we also choose some smaller ones that you might otherwise miss. So if you want to be better informed about the world around you and news from all over the globe, then you really ought to subscribe. And it's only a few minutes each day, so what do you have to lose? We post a video version every weekday over on the TLDR Daily channel, so you can subscribe over there. Or you can listen along to the podcast by searching for the TLDR Daily Briefing in your favourite podcast app. Thanks for your support, and I hope you enjoy the new show.